Front wheels Royal Enfield 500 motorcycle. The valve here is exactly opposite the O in the DOT number as marked by a chalk line. Isn't very effective. Anyway, that's where the tyre and the valve line up on the rim with this is the left hand side where the brake shoe is. Yeah, this is a Royal Enfield 500 Bullet, showing the order in which the components come off from the twin leading shoe brake model. This is a 2000 model year Enfield Bullet, registered in 2006, and left outside, so the wheels went pretty rusty, as you can see. Not all that good. So I'm putting some brand new wheels on the bike, which I got for 140 quid for both back and front, bearings, the whole lot from India. Got done for 26 quid import duty. I've had them for about 3 years, and finally I'm getting round to replace them. So I've taken the tyre off, just put the tyre back on, and I'm just making a video so that when I do put it back together, I'll be able to remember in which order all the components go. First thing I mentioned, this is a 26mm nut, 24mm at this side, and a 26mm nut there. That nut there is very difficult to remove because it's recessed into the brake plate. Tried all sorts of things, thought about getting a socket, a long socket, etc. But eventually I did loosen the 24mm side, and then I managed to drive the end of this shaft with a hammer. Never a good idea, but I've got some new components. It's obviously slightly moved the bearings inside, given me that little bit of wiggle room, and enabled me to take the nut off. So here we go with this nut. The thing about this nut is it's flat on both sides, i.e. it's not dished. There is a nut actually in the new kit that I've got that's got a slight dish on it, and there is a dish actually on this new brake plate, as you can see there, slightly recessed there, and I think that dish goes in there, but we're going to find out in a minute. So that's what comes off first. There is obviously then the speedo drive comes off. So that's the second component. There's a spacer then that comes off here, which comes off with the neck of this spacer, longest further out here, short side in here, and a washer there that's pretty much fastened to it, but that's probably just a little bit of rust. Funnily enough, that little part there, that washer, didn't come in the new kit. I think that's one thing that they've missed off, but this unevenly spaced spacer does. So that's the next one there, as I say, just to remind myself, with this side facing outwards, that's the longest side. In here we seem to have, yes we do, a felt washer, which I believe is supposed to be covered in grease or something, but anyway, that's fairly dry. Oh, then inside, okay, slight hiatus there, but this is the next component to come off. It's a dished washer with the dished part, as you can see there, which is facing towards the bearing, which you can just see inside of there. So just to recap, everything's not obvious. Nut, not dished as far as I can tell. Speedo drive, got a new one of them anyway. uneven spacer with a long part sticking towards the outside edge, a felt washer which I've got some new ones of, and this dished washer here with the dish part there facing towards the hub. So that is the right hand side of a Enfield 500 2000 model year front hub. So Royal Enfield front hub, twin leading shoe from a 2000 model year 500. Just shooting a video to show the order in which the components are removed and reassembled. First thing to come off is this 26mm nut, which, as you can see there, is dished. It's got the dish on it there, and it's this dish side here, there, which fits into a dish in there. So it goes on that way around, not the other way around, and that's different from this one here, which is from the other side of the front wheel. Next thing is this comes off, and no surprises in there. Not a great deal of wear actually, a bit dirty, but not too bad. Next thing to come off is this felt washer. Hopefully. There we go. Which has a flange on it there and really no flange there. It's a spacer actually that fits inside it, with a flange on the outside. So the flange actually goes on the outside with the non-flange side facing towards the, there's a flange there, facing towards the bearing. The tricky bit might be getting this washer out, although I don't know, it might come out easily enough. Yes, here we go. And when this comes out, we will see that the dished side, is facing towards the bearing. It's quite hard actually shooting a video, and I want to have a camera assistant. Not to worry. Put the camera down for a second. And there we have the dished washer removed, and as you can see, the dish there is facing towards the bearing. And that is the bearing actually in there, and of course the shaft, the spindle. So we've got this, just to recap, we've got this nut here, flange side towards the bearing, this flange side sticking out, non-flange side there towards the bearing, this flange side towards the bearing, pardon me, and that's about your lot. Next step is to put new bearings and a new spindle into my new wheel, and then to reassemble the whole lot. There's one other issue that I've noticed, which is that this spindle has got a longer at the speedo side, that's the right hand side, than it is at the brake drum side. There's a fairly short length of spindle there, the other side of the bearing. The bearing is finished pretty much flush with the inside lip of the hub, and on this side again the bearing is again pretty much flush with that lower lip inside the bearing. So I'll proceed now to actually remove the spindle and see how that measures up against the spindle I got from the chap in India, and let's hope that it's the same one. Rather as I expected, these two front spindles are not the same. If I put them up side by side like this, you'll see that the centre section is the same, and this flange on this side slightly varies. This area here is smaller than the area there. That distance there is smaller on the existing shaft than the existing shaft, that one, and the new shaft here. Obviously the existing shaft has got this bearing here. This longer side here, this area you see there, is much longer than that area there, because the bearing would be fitting in that thing there, that area there. This area here, I'd say that this one is probably, oh, I don't know, what will it be, another centimetre longer, and as far as the threads are concerned there, those are smaller than what we have here. So I don't know what I've been given, but I've been given a spindle which is not compatible by the looks of things with the Bullet 500 2000 model year that I've got. Not to worry. The other thing is that the bearings that were in the bike are sealed bearings, and the bearings that I've got that were given are open ones, and I don't think I've damaged the bearings taking them out, because they weren't that tight. Obviously couldn't wield a 2-pound hammer and shoot a video at the same time, unless I got the tripod out from upstairs, but basically a few taps and not too heavy, and the bearings came out fairly easily. So as the thing is fairly easy to take to pieces, I think I'll use the existing shaft, which I've ground a flat on now there, as that was the only way that I could get a grip of it to get the nuts loose. Obviously it'd been in for 15 years and was quite happy there. So what I think I'll do is actually try to tap this back in, and just for the record, so I don't forget, this longer side here is the side where the speedo is, which of course, speedo drive, which of course makes sense because that's quite a chunky piece of kit, as you can see there, which is a couple of centimetres in depth, and clearly you need to have that extra length of shaft, spindle, as you might call it, on that particular side, otherwise the shaft would not fit. So I'm going to try and tap in the old shaft with the existing bearing, using a box spanner of some sort, so I can just get on the outside edge and maybe not, do any damage. And I'll do a video afterwards to see how I've got on. So here we are about 20 minutes later, and I drove the existing bearing in from this side. As you can see, this is the speedo drive side, and it's flush with the inside flange there. The only thing I had to do was I had to use a where's he gone now? I had to use one of these washers, the dished ones, because I didn't have any big enough to fit over the entire width of the diameter of the bearing. Thing is that this had a dish on it, but you can see it doesn't have much of a dish now, but I have got a few spare ones. The thing was, when as I hit it with the box spanner, which I have here, I just put on the that on there, that on there, and tapped it with one of those. And not really all that hard actually, so the clearances on these are not absolutely jam tight, which is probably what you'd expect for something that's made, you know, as a fairly basic copy of a 1950s British model. It's quite nice that, you know, the bearing tolerances, the fittings into the hub, etc., are not down to, you know, millionths of an inch CAD wise, but they're simply a nice tight snug fit. So once I've got that baby off, which of course I'll be used next time I need to change a bearing, you can see that we've got the slightly longer portion of the shaft here before we have the thread. The bearing is really nice and smooth and solid. Just looking quickly at the other side, whipping around, here we've got the other bearing there, flush up against this flange here, and you can just see popping out there the unthreaded part of the spindle, with the threaded part there for the for the brake plate once that goes on. So all in all, you know, not too shabby a job. Just one final point on this spindle and the new wheel, which you can see is nice and shiny, is that I said where the bearings had to be situated in order to get the spindle in the correct place, and they were approximately correct until I started to put this in and found that this speedo drive wouldn't quite sit far enough in here, which meant that this shaft had to come out a little bit and the bearing possibly had to go in a little bit further. I had no problem with the brake side here. That was you know, quite easy to put on. Of course, just inside there you can see the nut, which of course is of the dome variety, to fit into the dish for this here brake plate. So I found that the best way to adjust that was to, you know, put it onto the workmate and just give it a gentle tap with the rather flattened washer that I now have, and a £2 hammer. And once I've done that a couple of times, and a bit of a tap on the end of the shaft at the other side actually, so this shaft sort of came through more this way, the thing went together quite sweetly. So the bike's just passed its MOT today, and she's looking quite nice actually, with 1,848 kilometres on the clock. Does need that tank touching up and a few other jobs, but not too shabby at all. Apart from the fact that the guy at the MOT centre just told me that this front wheel, which I hadn't checked, is slightly out of round. It's slightly elliptical, so obviously I'm going to have the whole thing off again and adjust the spokes. I have to take the tyre off as well, but it's ever so slightly out, and not anything you can notice when you're riding it, but you know, it's an advisory on the MOT, so it's something I need to put right before the next MOT. So here we are on the what is it, about the 5th of June today, I think, and so before 5th of June 2016 we're going to have to try and get that sorted out. And of course the next job after that is this back wheel here. He did mention that the spokes are rusty, they're okay, you know, but they want seeing to, and of course I'll be replacing that wheel with a brand new wheel and refitting the tyre in due course. And of course before I put the new wheel on, I'll just make sure that it's not slightly elliptical to save myself the job of taking it off again. So there we are. All in all, not a bad couple of weeks work really to get the bike ready for the road. Actually, it's not been used in 3 years. In fact, it's not been used much at all with 1800 clicks on the clock, and probably just take her out for a blast this afternoon.